Okay. We are live. Boom.
Yes, we are.
That hit of dopamine just hits us. We need more filmmakers and we need more storytellers. You were just giving a great analogy. Can you just drop that?
Happy to. I'm Wendy Weiner, and I'm a film producer. And so Randy Greenberg, who's an exceptional film producer, actually stepped off our project because he went exclusive. He did the Meg. He executive produced the Meg, which is a little shark, big shark, little ocean, and
Oh
then
yeah.
made over $500 million internationally. And so he got signed exclusively for Meg too. But he's a good friend and a great mentor. And he always
Megalodon. Meg is short for
the
megalodon.
Megalodon, the big shark. Oh yeah,
Right.
and great ad campaign. Just a brilliant guy in the industry. Done a lot of cool stuff. And he always gives us the analogy that every film, so even a 30-second spot, has to have two things: has to have wings and landing gear.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to make an impact, so the wings are how it soars, and that's all great, and the landing gear is how it sells. So first, he says you build the landing gear. First, you know how you're going to sell it, and then you know how wide and exotically painted the wings can be, and that's the key element here: making sure that you know how this piece is going to be sold, because it doesn't do anybody any good if we make the right now, if this is voted by one person the best podcast they've ever seen, but only one person sees it. Now you go out the best. Like there's a really lauded in some of the papers, all the movie theaters in the country have been closed, right? But there's one guy who made like a quickie, no budget short film.
Mm.
And he went in and he rented a movie theater in on Long Island, I think. And he bought every seat in the movie theater and had over the weekend and had one showing, but nobody
Okay.
could attend obviously because of social distancing. One showing. And
Okay.
so that no budget indie short film technically was the number one grossing film in the country for the week. So was the film any good? I don't know. I'm not betting in the bank on it. But he can say I've had the number one film in the country. Now,
That's
you dig deeper into that. There's not a lot of meat in that sandwich, right? But the fact is, he can say that. So if we do the best podcast, we don't know how to sell it. We don't know how to convey this point.
right.
How are we going to get to the next step? Whoops, got it. Our big focus is not just to tell stories in a vacuum. That's great. I can sit here in my, what did you call this? I'm sitting in the basement because that's where the best Wi-Fi. I don't know what's wrong with the Wi-Fi. So, and what you call it? A co-working space, I think you call it, because it's like
A
working
quirky
in
space.
quirking space.
It's
Because I'm like,
it's a quirky co-working space. So it's a
right. So
quirking
there's like my
space.
basement stairs, which look like holy heck, and I'm sitting on the floor in the laundry room because that's what worked best. Great. We have the best time ever. If nobody ever sees it, does it do anybody any good? If I make a great film, great, compelling, impactful, wonderful film, and I say, oh, I'll just put it on a shelf here and see what happens. I'm not talking, it's like one should, I'm not talking like put it on a video store shelf. Well, I guess that'll get you nowhere either way. So it doesn't do any good. Distribution is what counts. So how do we get seen? How do we have our stories seen? A lot of people do a lot of tagging. LinkedIn, tag, hashtag, and tagging a bunch of people. You're going to get a bunch of likes, and that was great. Oh, that matters. Who's going to search you out when you haven't tagged everybody that you know? They have to go looking. They have to go looking for what you provide, and the only way they do that is if they've had a bit of an experience with you, and that's what it is. So we have a book to film project. It's just an amazing project that my producing partner brought to me. Now here's the scoop. Let's start from the very beginning. 4 years ago, my producing partner Noah Bewley was my Lyft driver in Los Angeles.
Mm.
So one night I was meeting with Randy, as a matter of fact, and had to step out of a project, and I called a Lyft, and who picked me up was this. Never saw him except for the little app. How many times do you remember the little phone in the app?
Totally.
So I got in his car, and I was on fire after this meeting. A lot had gone wrong, a lot had gone right. I'd learned a lot, And he said, I've moved from the central coast of California. I'm living with some buddies in Pasadena. I'm writing a screenplay. We hear that all the time in LA.
Right.
So I was like, you have a dialogue coach who's working with you. How are you getting it done? That are like all this stuff. And I fire hosed him, and he had great answers. He was on top of it. I was super impressed with his answers and his intensity and his sensitivity. Like, he just had a thing. He shines. My kids are like, Mommy, does he shine? Does she shine? You know, you could just tell when someone has just got that right energy. So I said, here's my contact, here's my card. I'm happy to connect with people in LA. I live in Minnesota, but I'm happy to connect you with people in LA that can help you and sit down with you and mentor you a bit and help you get to the next step. Sure enough, 2 days later, I'm back in Minnesota, and he emails me. Hi, this is Noah, your Lyft driver. That's all it was, he said. And sure enough, with a smiley face at the end. And I said, I'm so glad I like kind of fire hosed you, and I felt bad, and I was giving a lot of he said, no, that was great. And after a few months...
He didn't give any context in his email. He just said, hey, I'm your Lyft driver with a smiley
face.
That's
it. It's all I needed. Hi, I'm Noah, your Lyft driver with a smiley face. That's all I needed. And I... It
almost obligated you to respond, you know?
He was really memorable.
It's the pitchless pitch.
Totally. And it was so effective. It was like, oh, do you remember? No, I didn't have, like, he had to say that. He knew the conversation was so impactful that I wasn't going to forget. And I said, you know, I'm happy to connect with mentors. And his immediate response was, I'd rather work with what's in front of me. I'd rather work with you. Let's take me as far as we can, and then let's see what we have to do. Like, that was his answer. So after a couple of months of really intensive mentoring back and forth, again, I'm in Minnesota, talking on the phone occasionally, text, email, but he'd send me a script, and I liked it. And I liked it so much, I thought, but I think I like this person. So young, he was 22 or 23 at the time. So I said, why don't you, I gave it to 2 people on my team who never like anything. These guys never like anything. And they both came back and went, this is really interesting. It's a really cool story. So I said, this is interesting, and I think we should go into business to produce your film. I'd never seen his face. So, because I don't care. What do I care? I'm a grandmother. Like, what do I care? But I just knew he had this thing. So after a few months, my youngest daughter, who's 18 now, but she was 14 at the time, and she's smarter than I'll ever be, said, Mom, you're spending a lot more time mentoring Noah than you do the rest of your strays. You should maybe Google him and see if he's a serial killer. I was like, Google has that? Cool. So I Googled him.
Click on the serial killer checkbox.
Like, it's that. Let's see. Let's look at his profile. It was a 6'3" serial killer. So I Googled him, and what I found instantly was a modeling portfolio. And Ruben, I see a lot of headshots. I do a lot of casting. But this is stellar, like GQ magazine spreads and like high-end brands. And so I texted him and asked, can we have FaceTime? And he's like, yeah, that'd be great. 10 o'clock. Fine. 10 o'clock, that face popped up, man. It was the exact opposite of Catfish. And the first thing I said to him was, I said, I'm so sorry. I'm so glad I loved your soul before I saw your face. He said, me too. And so I said, but is this you? And I like held my phone up to the laptop, and he said, didn't I mention? I've been a high fashion model since I was 14. My first client was the Adidas International. But I'm quiet, I'm shy, and I prefer to be behind the camera. And I've done film, done TV, but I really prefer to be behind the camera. And I said, I got to ask, like, I know what you had to be making when you're modeling full time. Why were you driving Lyft? And his answer cemented its place in my heart. He said, I was looking for you. I'm too shy. I'm too quiet to go to industry parties and do all that stuff and sort through the stuff. I don't want that. But I believe that focus goes where energy flows. And so I decided that I was going to find somebody who was going to get in my car, a producer, that was going to help me take my material to the next step. But from that night, the night I got in his car for the first time, we were working together. And so we have written so he brought me the script, and we took it apart and added flesh on the bones. And I'm about characters of theater background, characters and all that kind of stuff. And then we wrote, and then we brought it to Randy. He said, this is really good, but it has to be a book. And we're like, what? And he said, yeah, it's book to film now. You got to have a manuscript. You got to have a book. So we turned it into him. We wrote it.
Explain that one. It's book to film. What is that?
Because publishers have a first look deal with studios, or studios have a first look with publishers. Like, they have their parent companies, and they look. So you'll always see, looking in the library, now a major motion picture, you go into an airport, you see in the bookshop, then the gift shops, So that's where most ideas generated. There's got to be a lot of intellectual property for each project. It can't just be a one-off, like, oh, we made a film. Oh, I'll get the farm and barn and we'll do a show. There's a lot of intellectual property attached. And so that has to come from book. Now that's book or it can be a graphic novel to film. That's just a natural progression because the studio wants to invest in all different ways that they're going to, ancillary properties that they're going to make money.
So, I mean, basically that to me, because I'm a pretty impatient person, and if I want to get into this game, it's basically half a decade.
So it's funny how fast, we had the script, like he handed me the script. We took it apart and then we shot another film, a short film that's done really well in the film circuit, film festival circuit, and kind of as a side, and we really put the book together. And we really had a great co-author. We brought in Amy Blashka, who I knew pretty well, and I knew that she would be able to polish the edges. And so the manuscript came out. We signed with one agent, literary agent, who's just a great guy, super well connected on the West Coast. But sadly, he got very sick and he had to medically retire. So we stepped out. We got another agent, Vincent Solera in Montreal, who's a great guy, super artistic, very visual. And now then you have to have the property, the book property, and the script, and then the film, and then the video game will come out after it. So, are we time's up? Was that okay? When you stop talking.
That's amazing. No, that's actually getting a phone call here.
That's cool.
Let's see if it's the literary agent that I've actually been looking for my book.
Really?
I'm just about to drop it.
I know a guy.
You know what? I need a guy or a gal.
Okay, so we're gonna have more conversations, Ruben. This one's a great guy, great agent.
I have gone through this whole process, and at least the book part of this, and I actually didn't know we'd be talking about this, so it's really interesting. I'd love to get your feedback because I haven't done this before. This is my first book, and basically my story is that I've had some of the most interesting conversations with people over the last 12 months, actually, just like this.
Cool.
In this podcast.
Oh no! I want to be the most interesting.
No. This is headed there.
Cool.
Especially if you can give me a literary agent. No, but
I can get you an introduction. You can get you a literary agent. So we will have this conversation.
Yeah, no, but in all seriousness, I've had some of the most interesting conversations in this podcast, and I am so grateful because I've learned so much. I've learned more in this than in any other experience in my life.
You can't go to school. You can't.
No,
there's nothing you can learn from a book. There's nothing that replaces having a conversation. That's a great point. And what's the entry point in a conversation? What do you think when I look for someone who shines? I can't just find it. There's a certain energy about them, and there's a positivity, and there's a willingness, a sensitivity, and a compassionate component. If they shine, it's I want to hang out with that person and have a conversation. I watched your videos and I was like, okay, I'll do this. I want to talk to Ruben. I want to know what makes him tick because he is so curious about everybody else. It's that's just really cool. That's just a great attribute. That's a great skill. What's the first entry point into having these good conversations? You got to trust that you have something to say and that the other person has something to give you in that information. Okay, none of these things happen in a vacuum. You and I just connected and I was like, oh yeah. And you're like, could you want? I'm like, yeah. None of it happens in a vacuum. But that vacuum starts when someone flips a switch. I'll be open and I'm willing to tell you what I think and what I'm doing, and I'm willing to share this with you, and I'm willing to help you do what you need to do. So I believe, I'm convinced that we stand on the shoulders of giants. I know that Noah and I do. We've worked with so many great people who will just push us forward in the tiniest way, and you're like, wait a minute, how do you thank them? So the key is you can say thank you. And they're like, what? I just did what I always do. So we have to find an opportunity to repay that forward. So the first thing
I got to tell you this, yeah, and I love what you're saying, and for me it comes down to one word, which is vulnerability, which is something that it is the hardest thing to learn how to do, especially
it's
if you
instinctive though. Oh, it's the hardest thing to learn how to redo because it's instinctive, I believe. Like we all want to be vulnerable, and we all, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
Like I just did a post, and Vincent said to me just half an hour ago, we were talking, and he said, I was on the floor laughing. I had spoken to a guy, and he said, I'm a mentor, and I'd love to talk to you. And I was like, great. And he said, tell me everything that's going on. So like for 12 minutes, I just puked out everything that's going on because it's a lot. We have a lot and a lot of energy. And he looked, and he said to me, like it was just on the phone. So I would have loved to have seen his facial expression. He said to me, you're a lot. And at first I was like, yeah. And he's like, you're a lot. It's not what I usually deal with. Unless at the end of the conversation. And for a while I was like, crud, I'm a lot. Oh my gosh. And then flip, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna post this on LinkedIn. He's on LinkedIn, but he's not, whatever. And then I was like, and people came back and said, you know what? Seriously? Being a lot is a good thing.
Yeah.
Like I can't multitask at all. I can't do a lot. Like nobody can trash a kitchen the way I can. If I cook, it's a wet hot. Call the Coast Guard to clean up. It's bad. Like I'm terrible at most things, but the fact is that we have something to give, and I'm willing to be vulnerable and say, look, this is my bag. This is my baggage. I got some serious baggage, and but I'm willing to be open. And what I found with Noah is that he was also willing to be open and say, I don't know how to do that, but I trust that you do. So let's just go. On that.
Yeah,
and that's huge.
What's interesting to me is, my friend Gina Schreck, who's written some great books, and
I loved her movies, by the way. Just kidding.
Oh yeah, there you go. She's the opposite of that. She's a beautiful woman.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, but she. What's really interesting is that she told me one thing that really resonated with me once, which is that business videos or emails or writing or email, whatever it is, they're like love letters, to customers or to prospects, and minus all the romance and minus all of that stuff. It's two people connecting, like two souls connecting, like trusting one another,
Right.
And very similar to how you had that love story with Noah, and that very romantic. I mean, that's almost like when Harry met Sally moment, meeting in a lift. It's like a modern day moment.
Totally. Don't you think Lyft should buy that from us?
Oh Seriously. Yeah.
Don't you think people would want to be Lyft drivers? And like,
distributed on Netflix, produced by Lyft. That's the story. The problem is that they don't want their drivers having the romantic side of this. Business is probably okay, but the romantic side maybe gets weird. But what's really interesting is that
creepy,
is right.
It could go creepy.
Exactly.
It doesn't. Yeah.
Well, if it does go creepy, we'll just use your basement to shoot the whole thing.
Oh, that's even better. It's so funny because my parents love him. Like my whole family loves him, but my parents love him. They'll be like, "Oh, how's Peter?" That's my husband, Peter and Wendy. That's really creepy, I know. And then it's like Peter Pan, and then he'll say, "And how's Noah?" My dad's like, "How the hell's Noah doing?" I'm like, "He's doing great, Daddy." He's like, "Give him my love. I'm gonna call him." And okay, so
that's cool.
He became family, which is great.
There you go. I mean, family. I mean, talk about sending a letter. Maybe there's a video in there. Right. It sounds like there was a live video in there. And that right there, that story that you just gave me, that is our thesis right now. You just summed it up. That's the power of video, and that's what we've been evangelizing since day one. And, I remember seeing one of your videos where you were just dropping it on LinkedIn. And you didn't have a care in the world about it. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I like this. I was like, this is a voice right here. This is a voice.
So
that's why I wanted to interview you. Yeah.
Here's the creepy thing. I have no filter. Like it's so hard for me sitting in this basement to filter. But my kids are like, filter, or they'll just look at me and say, line, you've crossed the line. Part of being vulnerable is knowing that you're in a safe space. So it has to go two ways. I couldn't just be myself. It's easy in a video selfie when you're just, I'm going to tell my story. Hitting the button to send is real. Publish is that's the hardest step. I could look better. I could, then the truck went by, whatever. And so I really try, which is going to be so effective with Dubb, is to get it on the first take. if in my head I know what I want to say, like here's the point here's my thesis, and I know that here's how I'm going to set it up, and I go and get on the first take and just hit send, because after, yes, they may be, concurrent videos may be better, my hair looks better, or, the whatever, there wasn't the background noise. It's not as genuine. And the thing that I think in business is the genuineness of looking in someone's eyes when we're so far away. And even if we are next door to each other, we're still social distancing across the fence. So looking at someone's eyes and being able to read them and see, I believe, as we all know, that the eyes are the windows to the soul. And it's really hard to be unless you're completely pathological or narcissistic or something super off the charts, it's really hard to lie with your eyes. So when you get to speak to someone and hear what they're saying, you hear it, you filter it through that internal meter that's like, that really wrong, that was really true. When I said the story about Noah, or when I said this about you're a lot, and that was like a deal breaker for him, like that, I saw how that resonated with you, because I could feed off your energy and realize, like, okay, that's where connections are made. It's very hard to do that in vocal, just voice. It's done, and I worked in developing telemarketing departments for years, and it can be done. You just have to listen really hard, and listening is a skill that really has gone by the wayside. And I'm a visual learner, so it's listening is hard. I'm not an audiobook gal, so I want to see someone tell me, and I'm totally okay if you say to me, "You're a lot, and I can't really manage you, and so I can't really help you, and I'm sorry." I'm not going to, what am I going to freak or burst into tears? No, I'm going to say, thank you so much for your time and effort. I'd rather a quick no, and I'd rather be able to read your expression for a quick no than a really lengthy no. Oh, let me keep you waiting,
Those 6 month or 6 years no's.
Yeah. If you don't, what is Dallas Mavericks, I can't think of his name.
Mark Cuban?
Mark Cuban says, if you're not meeting with me and you don't have a check waiting, then I'm not coming.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not at that place, so I'm still taking meetings and doing a lot of, but there's a lot that has to go in. Mark Cuban's a known commodity. Yeah. So popular. He's a known commodity, and people really want to give him checks, but he's not going to waste his time. There's for small business people who are launching something, we're not at that place. We're going to take a lot of meetings, and it takes a long time to build that trust, because they really don't know about who we are. And who am I? I'm a grandmother, and I'm a mom, and I'm a Jewish mom, so it means I'm going to feed you, and I'm gonna, we're gonna laugh together. And at some point in time, you hear crazy stories about, my backstory, and like, what the hell were you doing in prison? I was in prison, and it's kind of a crazy thing. So, and how did you recover? And like all this stuff, like all those things that are ensuing stuff. I didn't do anything. I'm not smart to do anything, so it's a long story. But it's the big pictures, like all those pieces are a component of me, and you have to trust me. And you, my consumers, investors, distributors, people we're going to work with, have to learn how to trust. And they can read the bio and think, wow, this chick is kind of really off the charts. I don't feel safe doing that. Or they can read the bio and say, wow, look how far she's come. Like, look at that. Look, and you can see the intensity, and that it's not a place, she was never intended to go there. And even the judge who released her is like, why are you here? I know, that's a crazy question. So we have to be able to trust each other. And I think if I see you and you're open and your arms are not crossed, and you're not like holding yourself like, oh gosh, I can't have this, this is not somebody that I want to connect with. Your physical stature and everything is very open. You introduced me to your son right away. He ran, but he took the snack and ran. So it's like, okay, I'm willing to open myself and my house and my reality to you, because I'm not hiding anything. And that's something that the hiding is really easy in a cloaked space, and on video it is really difficult to pursue, to promote that. I'm going to tell you what I want you to know, and not what my reality. My reality is all written all over my face. And
well, there's something here that I think that you could help us all at.
I'm honored to do so.
And here it is. It's kind of specific, and it touches upon what you were talking about earlier. And I know with your background as a producer and in theater and in storytelling and just being you, is externalizing the internal, you know. And if you're thinking, so you talked about the one take wonder.
First take.
Right?
First take.
Like,
just
show me your phone, and you know, sometimes I'll go to someone and I say, show me your phone and show me your deleted videos. And if I go through it and if I see like 50 of the same video where it's like, hey, I just wanted to, hey, I just wanted to, hey, I just wanted to, right. I'm like, something's wrong here. I'm like, you're wasting time, and you need to get to that. Do you do that? Would you do that in an elevator? Would you do that having a conversation with someone that's your Lyft driver? No, you wouldn't. Do you do that when you go have
There's
like,
no do-over.
There's no do-over in real life.
There's no do-over. So video is just exactly what you're saying, Ruben.
Exactly.
Video is exemplifying that I'm willing to show you that I'm not perfect. I may sneeze in the middle. I mean, it's stuff, you know.
It's stuff.
It's stuff, but that's life and that's real. And I'm willing to show that to you because I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid of you getting to know who I am in that capacity. Not the sneezing part, but everything else. A full open book. You show me who you are, and I'm a lot more likely to do business with you.
Yes.
Moreover, if you show me who you are and I don't need you for business, I'm a lot more likely to recommend you to somebody that could use you. And I'm all about that. So my dad was a real estate broker for 40 years, and he asked me, what sells a house? I think, oh, it's the porch, it's the front, the curb appeal. No. He'd say, the sign. And I was like, you mean a really nice sign with a great logo? He's like, no. When I put a for sale sign in front of somebody's house, the first thing that happens is the people on the block take note. And the guy 3 doors down and across the street, more often than not, will call his buddy and say, hey, I know you've been looking for a bigger house. One just went on the market across the street. I'm telling you, they've got a great backyard. We've been there for kids' birthday parties. And I know you like our school district, and it's close to your church. And, hey, why don't you come check it out? And you think that friend who already has a neighbor that they like is not going to just make a beeline, here's the information, call the realtor. That house is off the market that day. Why? Because there's so much internal. I can vouch for it. It's really nice on the inside. It's got a 2-car attached garage. Like the stuff. He knows what's going to speak to the buyer. Does he get any commission from it? No, he gets hot dogs next, in 2 weeks.
Well, he gets a friend. He gets a friend as a neighbor.
Across the street. You get to cherry pick your neighbors. The sign sells the house. So what I see Dubb doing is you're the sign that can sell the house. You're not giving them money or providing the paperwork. You're making that awareness available to people. Oh, this is available. I'm available. I'm looking for. I know somebody who's looking for exactly what you do, and I can attest to the fact that it really works. And that's really important. So, for my little bit of research on Dubb, that's what y'all are doing, and that is the key element in anybody going to the next conversation. Doesn't do anybody any good if you make the most beautiful high-tech sci-fi video in the world, and if people share the video, but they really aren't interested in your product. What good does it do?
Right.
Meanwhile, if I have an emotionally compelling conversation, effective emotional marketing, I tell you what I do and why I do it, and why this next project that Noah handed me called My Golden Blood, why this is so impactful. And you see in a video, the elevator pitch in essence is that, I'll give it to you right now. It's pretty simple. Imagine, Ruben, that someone has decided to destroy 100 million happily ever afters. Now, imagine that person was you yesterday. Today, you decide to stop what you started. If I deliver that to you and give you that pitch and say, is this something that interests you? If you're interested in the material, you're going to holler, yeah. If you're interested in the way I delivered it, or if you say, you could say it better if you did it, whatever. That's great. Conversely, or if they say, I'm looking for a wacky investment, or I've got a daughter who's an actress and I really want her to connect with you. Great. Let them connect. Let's make that emotional connection, and everything that comes out of it is going to be good. but you have to see people say it. And I think we lose that. We sure as heck have lost that with text messages. So Dubb has the ability to just go back and get that. Yeah. And imagine if you're the first one on the block that puts up a sign, and do that with Dubb, then you're going to be the one.
That's inspiring. I love the way that you put that together. The thing that I'm frustrated about is that I don't see a lot of people in your space using Dubb. I actually don't see a lot of people in cinema, in film, in literary. I mean, pitching a literary agent, like Dubb is created for that, and we don't sell it like that. We don't know how to market to that group. It's probably hard to advertise to writers, or filmmakers. But how do we punch through in that space? That's my question for you.
So with filmmakers, I think it's you got to go to the people who build the landing gear. So a producer is going to be much more interested than a director or a writer, because they are not involved in the sales process. Noah is great at so many things. Like, I really only have 3 skills in the whole world, and he has so many skills. But he doesn't want to be involved in the sales process. Just let me know what I need to do, because that's just not where he wants to spend his energy. So creatives aren't necessarily going to want to. Producers like me are going to recognize, like, this is really interesting. Now, the question we're going to pose to Vincent, our agent, is, would he open it, a video? If a video came, pitch, and he gets pitched a lot, all the good ones do. They get pitched incessantly. But would it tickle his interest if he got a video and he saw somebody on the other side that he could work with? Now think about it. Creatives, we are notoriously...
I'll be the guinea pig.
Cool. We'll do that. Just random, you, sir, in the front. You be the guinea pig. And we are notoriously difficult to work with. So imagine if you sign a client, you could have 100 projects in front of you, and you could take maybe 10 on a year, maybe. And 97% of the people are a pain in the butt. Well, then you're probably only going to take on 3 projects that year. Because no matter how much money you think you can make, it's just not worth the stress and strain. And there's a wealth of projects, good, bad, and different. And there aren't very many literary agents who are moving material now. So book-to-film agents are a really, hot thing. But it's very rare. I mean, there just aren't a lot. So they get pitched a lot. So why not be the one who pitches them differently and shows that really how easy it would be to work with you and how much fun? And that's how I got to Vincent. Is we were already linked in. And I texted him and I said, I think we would have a great time on a phone call. And that was it. And he's like, okay, I'll take you up on that. And then I elevator pitched to pitch him the project. He read it and he called me 2 days later and he said, I'm in, I'll sign you. And I said, okay, great. So we're lucky enough that the project can carry it where I can't. Because I can tell you about it. But it's really the intensity of it when you read it. To be like, oh, and it's YA. So it's really like in that Divergent, Harry Potter kind of a market, but it's a little more Comic-Con-ish maybe. It's a thriller, but it's just, I'm so thrilled with the way it comes out that when I read it, I still get goosebumps. And I wrote some of it. Yeah, it's really cool. And I wrote a lot of it. I added a lot of skin on the bones. So there's that. And Noah doesn't like publicity. He's been in front of the camera. He doesn't want the pub. So Q&As and things like that, he's always like, she'll do it. I know film festivals, right? And I have no problem. So we have to know our skill sets. What you make me realize in this is that
this is all just a big digital party that we're at right now. We're just hanging out at a party, and some people are shy, some people are more forward.
Some people have been drinking.
Some people have been drinking. We all have to be comfortable in this little crowd that we're in, which is maybe LinkedIn or YouTube or social. Because if we're not, then we're not going to be able to thrive. We're not going to be able to do our business. And we're not, more importantly, going to feel comfortable, if we're at that party and we just don't feel comfortable with ourselves or what's around us,
How willing are you to show your landing gear to someone that you don't know?
Yeah.
Like it takes a long time to figure out exactly how you're going to get this on the market, right? Dubb, you didn't one day wake up and think, gosh, I have a great idea. You know what? We'll launch it tomorrow. Oh, it must have taken much. And then even then, you got to be able to adjust your sales. I mean sales as in sailboat, not as in sales, but you've got to be able to literally change how you think of it, because all of a sudden something comes up, you're like, wow, that's right. We are a digital party, if you think about it. And the problem is people don't know they've been invited to the party. Isn't that crazy? Mm-hmm. We're all at a party and nobody realizes. But if I get an invitation from you, Ruben, and you're like, oh my gosh, Wendy, there is this, you got to get on this. This is so cool. You'd be such a great addition. And whatever the thing is, oh my, I think you really get a lot out of this, or whatever, or there's someone here, whatever it is, because I know you now, I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that seriously. And I'm going to schedule, move everything around so that I can, Ruben says this is a good idea, we're going in. Because you just don't know. You just don't know who's going to walk in that party. I was at a film festival, Palm Springs Film Festival, probably, I don't know, 10 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago. And I'm saying, so there's an actor, and I didn't know him at all. And I just walked over to him and I said, where are the parties? Like, he looked like a young Jewish guy. I'm like, I'm in, okay. He's like, oh, and he looks at me, and she's clearly, I'm a Jewish mom, and he's like, let's go. So he grabbed people, and we went to this party. And it was great. And I'm standing there kind of just waiting for, I don't know what, and we're just kind of walking in. And I'm standing kind of by the door of this big tent, and it's Palm Springs, and it's January, and I'm in 5-inch heels, and it was ridiculous. But it was super fun. Great people. And in walks a young couple. He had a beanie on, and she's giggling and talking to a friend of hers or whatever. And he turns to me and he says, could I borrow your cell phone? I was like, absolutely. Mom, oh yeah, young. And my first thought was, oh my gosh, this is the prettiest face I've ever seen on a young man, on a man. And then he's like, okay, and he starts talking, and I realize, oh my God, it's Zac Efron is using my phone. So, and I'm thinking to myself, I've never seen his work, but I knew who he was. And he was just structurally beautiful and just so nice. And so we schmoozed, and he's like, what are you doing here? And I said, oh, we're here. Oh, that's so cool and great. And guess so-and-so. And he's like, oh, and I'm not going to say, what are you doing here? Because you're freaking Zac Efron. But we're like laughing and talking to, he was dating Vanessa at the time, and they're like fun. It's like, you might be in beer. I'm like, are you old enough? He's like, never mind. And whatever. And we're laughing, and then it goes on. You don't know who's coming to your party. You just don't know. But you know that if you don't open the door, no one's coming.
Right. And if someone needs to borrow your cell phone, you should let them
say yes. Just say yes. Just say yes. So I was like, oh, and he hands it back, and it's all good, and then whatever. So nobody's going to come to your party if you don't open that door. Right. And how do we open the door? How do you, if you knock on, there's a party and you knock on the door, if a big, ugly dude with scars on top of his tattoos opens the door and he's like, what do you want? You're probably not, I don't know, Ruben, but I'm probably not going in. I'll be like, wrong door. Okay. Somebody opens the door and they're welcoming. Hi, come on in. This is great. And we're happy you're here. I'm walking in. Well, I might walk in with the dude too. I'm not sure. Whatever. But yeah.
Well, you know what's really interesting is that all the things that we couldn't necessarily do in high school, we can now do in our own little digital party, because we can actually be the host of this party if we want, at least to a certain extent.
Yeah, exactly.
And a host is all about serving others and listening and fulfilling people's needs, at least if you want to be a good host. I mean, unless you're Zac Efron. If you're Zac Efron, you probably don't need to worry about other people's stuff.
He was so courteous about the phone, though. Thank you so much. I really need to make that. I need to find my friend. Thank you so much. So he was courteous, and it was, it was like a pleasant experience. And I remember going, like, then a few weeks later, my kids had a roller skating birthday party for somebody, and they were playing the High School Musical soundtrack, which I had never seen. I don't know that I've ever seen it to this day. And my daughter comes to me and she sits down and she's just like in shock, and she's like, they're all singing to the High School Musical soundtrack, and you know him. I was like, I'm just a Minnesota mom. Kids on roller skates. There's no.
You're like, I have his DNA right here.
I licked the phone, babe.
Your phone is in a Ziploc bag. It's just hanging on your wall.
Why is that? And I was like, I didn't think about selfie. It wasn't like one of those things. So it's Billy Crystal, though, I did get a selfie with, because Billy Crystal rocks. And then I called home and I said to my youngest, most plugged in to me, and I said, at the time, and I said, I'm going to give you one line. And somebody I just met, and I'm never like this, but one line. And I'll bet you know who it is. And I said, have fun storming the castle. She's like, oh my God, you met Billy Crystal.
Oh, I love that movie.
So what's the key? Again, it's about what's the story.
Inconceivable.
Inconceivable. I don't think you know what it means. And he was just lovely. And we spoke for a long time. And the key is you don't go to the party unless the door is open. Video opens the door. So let Dubb be your doorbell. You just got to open the door. That's key. That's just key. So as uncomfortable, people are like, oh my gosh, I'm so uncomfortable. I have a good friend, Brian Schulman, great guy. His first 20 LinkedIn videos were like, it was like pulling teeth. He called me at 2 o'clock in the morning. Oh my gosh, I can't do this. I'm not sure. I'm like, yes, you can. We'd write the script and we just hash it through. And now he's a phenom. He was like the innovator of LinkedIn video. Why? Because he pushed through the uncomfortable part. Yeah. He pushed and got to that space where he's like, you know what? Video works. And he has a great backstory. And he's how I got to meet Billy Crystal. He invited me to a picnic and there was Billy. So all kinds of cool stuff. You don't know what can happen. So why would you ever restrict yourself? I'm going to use phone and email. That's great. Where would Gary Vaynerchuk be if he didn't have video? And he was doing video way before. Potty mouth Gary was doing video before.
He'd be passed out somewhere on red wine,
and be like, "Okay, this is my."
He'd be the baker that just ate all the donuts.
Totally, because what else could he do? But video, he saw that on the horizon, and he said, "I'm gonna capture that, and I'm gonna suck the first few 100 times, maybe, but I'm gonna get better." Because there's a certain level of confidence that if I open the door, if you're willing to throw a party, Ruben, you're damn confident about what you're serving and who you've invited. And so that's a thing. So it shows a certain amount of confidence that I'm just willing to let you see who I am. I got stuff, and I may get interrupted by like a kid who walks through. That's cool. And I may get interrupted by, something may fall apart or something. That's my life. And this is my life. And as a film producer, sometimes those little things get woven into a script later on. And I've had a lot of instances where someone would say, oh my gosh, did you put that in the script? I'm like, oh, that's script worthy. I'll write it down because it's just a great line or a great context or whatever. So again, open the door. That's what you're doing. So that's why I'm becoming a big fan of Dubb. I think it's a great idea. I'm looking to delve more using it, getting more into, I upload the apps, getting more into the process of exploring how far this could take us,
Love that. I want to be part of your journey, and I want to be part of your success. I
want you to read my book.
Oh, bring it. I'd love to. I'd love to.
Great.
That sounds awesome. And likewise, by the way, right back at you.
Done.
I have this. Okay, there's two quick things I actually want to say. Number one is, turn your trauma into your superpower. I've never said that before.
Totally.
I kind of realized it as you were saying some of those things, talking about Noah, talking about yourself, talking about all these things, talking about this
prison
party there,
cool,
prison, high school,
cool.
These, the scars on top of the tattoos. These are all traumas, and we all suffer from them in our own right. And the weirdest thing, if we lean into them, is that is where the opportunity is. That is where the true golden potential and power is. And for me personally, it's the chase, burned by the chase. I could not take it anymore. Chasing investors, chasing, founders, chasing customers. The chase burned me. I could not take it anymore.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting. And it's like, this is such and I'd look back 12 months. What did I do in the last 12 months? And I'd have a long spreadsheet, and I'd have one column that said status, and it was like, bad. But maybe there's one or two goods in there. And I was like, wait a minute, why don't I have all of these things be good? And then it's really great if something else happens on top, like a customer or an investor. And that was my pivot change. And that was honestly, that is the catalyst story behind Dubb. Here's my message to everyone. And I say this as a student, not as a teacher of this, but let's all turn our process into storytelling. Let's be at our digital party and just get people to like us and hang out and have a good time, and good things will happen.
Get people to see us. If they don't like it, great. There's that unfollow button. You're out. That's awesome. I'm not going to be everybody's flavor. Not everybody likes vanilla. That's cool. So on the other side of it,
oh, but you're not vanilla. You're like pistachio with caramel and chocolate
and salted caramel. Oh yeah, I'm in, totally in. So yeah, I'm a lot. I know, right? I love what you just said, and I think that really we think that our pain, the more you keep it down and keep it quiet, the more it hurts. A splinter hurts if it's left in. Once you take it out, it doesn't feel so great, but you take it out and you expose it to air, and you're like, oh, you know what? In a couple of days, I'll be past this. Yeah. So it's a really big component. Like when I spent 6 months and 5 days on a 10-year sentence, 6 months and 4 days, actually, after the chief judge took me out of prison and said, I don't know why you're here at all. He filleted the attorney general for prosecuting me they couldn't really find a crime even. I had there's no fine. They're like, well, everybody's got fine. No, I didn't have one because I didn't do anything wrong. So, and they filleted the attorney general and then sent me home. Mm-hmm. And so you're like, oh, how do you regroup? How do you readjust? I've been fighting this for 3 years. It was ridiculous. And so we see it more and more in the courts. People are just convicted because whatever. So go further in this. And then I did this whole speaking tour all over the world because I was like, I'm a pariah. Like, who's going to do business with me? But people want to hear my story. And the more I told my story, not for me, for them, I got the most out of it. So if we start to think about the fact that we don't know who needs that splinter to be removed, that I have the tweezers. My story is the catalyst for them to go, wow, that hurt her. I get it. That hurt me. But look what she did on the other side of this. Look at those things. Not holding myself up, because we all have the capacity to grow through it. They're not lessons, they're blessings. They're blessings and they're lessons mixed together. And if we take it like that, it's like, wow, that projected me to the next level. So I look at a lot of people who come in contact with me who reach out. They're like, oh my gosh, I've had it so hard. And it's been such I came through so much. The key element is I came through. Just like you said, the fire. So in 2019, Noah and I set the word for the year was push. And we pushed. Literary Agent, finished the book. We pushed really hard. I realized how much energy it took to push. So at the end of the year, we sat down for a long time, and we decided the year of 2020 was going to be pull. And what we were going to do is he was going to give in his ways, and we were going to have the right energy and the right team around us. They were going to pull the people who we needed to be in front of to us. And we've been, and I mentor a lot of people, I speak to a lot of people, counsel a lot of people, like, how do I get out of this? I'm in a rut. How do I do this? And my answer is always the same. So I just gave this example last night, but I love this story. There's a Rabbi Twersky is his name, and he is one of the foremost experts as a psychiatrist and in addiction issues. And he wears a big, long black coat, a big white beard. You'd never look at this guy and think, oh yeah, this is his area of expertise. And he said he was in a dentist's office, and he's flipping through a magazine, and it says, there was an article, How Do Lobsters Grow? It's like, I don't really care about lobsters, but I was sitting there reading the article, and I thought maybe I'll learn something from it. So lobsters hatch, and they're little squishy things, and they go under a rock, and they hide, and shortly an ectoskeleton forms around them, and they go off from under the rock. They're relatively protected, and they go do lobster business. They eat, they play, whatever, and as they eat and they grow, that shell becomes uncomfortable. It's too tight. So they have to put themselves under another rock in a safe place. The shell splits, they step out of the shell, and they have to hunker down and stay safe for a little while, and another shell grows, and they go out and they do their lobster stuff. And this happens 12 or 15 times over the course of a lobster's life. He said, if we're not uncomfortable, we don't grow. And when we're uncomfortable, it's a sign that we have to take what's going on around us, and we have to grow. We have to. So I would talk to women in prison about this when I would counsel them, and I would, we'd make like this little hand thing, like this. Like, yeah, you're lobsters. It's uncomfortable now, but you're growing. So I think the most compelling component in video is that we get to see people. Sometimes they have their shells. Sometimes their shell's uncomfortable. Sometimes they're under the rock, and they have to just be patient and persistent and let their shell grow, and they can come out. And video reveals that much better than, I'm fine, Mom, everything's great. Well, that's not real. But real is watching the people will shed their shells many times, and the catalyst for growth is being uncomfortable. And Rabbi Twersky says, if you go to a doctor, and then you say, I'm uncomfortable, they give you Vicodin, they give you Percocet, they give you antidepressants, and you don't feel uncomfortable anymore. But then there's no growth there. Mm-hmm. And you clearly, in this journey that you're on, have decided that the discomfort is worth the price. That's the price we pay for allowing people to empowering people to tell their story in a way that other people will look at it and say, I could do business with that guy. I could do business with Dubb. I can get on that platform and show who I am, because I may have walked through fire. I may have gotten singed a bit, but I made it through. Winston Churchill says, when you're going through hell, just keep going. Well, that process, as you said, documenting the process, it's a fire. You're right. And sometimes it's hot and miserable. But the key is, when you are attuned with that process, you're going to be able to attract people who are intrigued by the fire that you've gone through. And they're going to come to you. You're going to pull them towards you. And you're going to say, this is my truth. I'm as vulnerable as I can be. Say what you want. This is my reality. And I'm here to do this. And if this intrigues you, hit me up. And when someone hits me up on LinkedIn, the first thing I try to for them right away is I ask them point blank, how can I add fuel to your fire? What is it you need? People from all over the world call me and they ask me, can you help me find my why? A la Simon Sinek. Absolutely. I do all the time. I got a Facebook call from a gentleman in Guam. I didn't know where Guam was, actually, but I knew it was an island somewhere. And he called me, and he's in the car with his wife, and we drill down, and I hear what he says, and I can hear the words he punctuates and see what his reaction is to those words. And sure enough, we pull out his why very succinctly, and he bursts into tears. He said, my whole life I've been looking for that. You already had it. Once we put it into words and you do it with somebody, it has impact. My why is to incite gratitude. I don't want to inspire gratitude, Ruben. That means I did something. I want to tell stories that take people to a place where they like, wow, I'm so grateful that bad thing happened, because everything good that I learned out of that projected me to a different life.
Can you imagine if we didn't have those hard times, what we would be like as human beings?
We'd be robots. We wouldn't have any compassion. We wouldn't understand. We wouldn't want to have a conversation. We'd be afraid because you could tell me something that I don't want to hear. There's a lot of stuff I probably don't want to hear. But at the same time, there are a lot of things that I need to hear, because that's a new shell for me. And then I go on.
It's almost like we need to be sort of future forward masochists, where when we are going through hell, Winston Churchill's hell, or trials, tribulations, that we know that we're going to get through it. Now that's right.
Yeah. We have to know. So where does that come from? Higher power, trust. We have to believe that we were built with the capacity to get through it.
Yeah.
We were built,
and that's just self-love, right?
That is self-love, and that's involving self-care.
Yeah.
Some people are stressed out now because they've been locked down. How do they go back to the real world, and what do they do, and masks and all kinds of stuff. And there's so much anxiety. And you hear that. I live in Minnesota. We are the champion of riots for, terrible things happen here, and people erupted, and it was horrible. They were locked down for 3 months, and then poof, it was just bad. So we have to look at the bigger picture, that everybody's going through something. And what we're going through, there's a great old Yiddish expression. If you and all your friends got together and they brought a big bag of all their troubles, and they put them sitting around the kitchen table, and everybody opened their bag, and you looked at all the other troubles everybody has, you take your bag of crap and go home. Because your own stuff is what you can handle, but you can't handle what the other troubles. You can help them handle it, but you would not choose to be in their situation. Oh, my stuff is so bad. My stuff isn't so bad. I have the capacity to persevere and to get through it, because I was built with a strong shell, and I can do it. So there's a lot. There's just a lot to unpack here, and all of it starts by looking someone in the eye, watching them listen to you speak, and instantly if you can do business with them. And that's the key. It's the eyes. It's how they listen. It's the active listening part that you're really good at, Ruben. And it's just like, how do I quickly because the world goes quick. How do I quickly measure if this person measures up? And the answer is really simple. Look them in the eye and speak to them. You know, that's it. You come to the party, decide you're going to come in the door. It looks kind of sketchy, or are you going to leave? Right. And then trusting that gut instinct that you get when you talk to somebody. Trust the gut, self-care, love yourself, trust yourself. That divine spark in all of us that says, this is probably a bad thing. And then walk away. Walk away happily. I saved myself from a lot of heartbreak or issues. And so I'm just not going to do that.
Right.
You know, because I think highly enough of myself not to put myself in that situation.
Amazing. So where can we find more about you and learn about you? And you've got some amazing projects going on, it sounds like. Super
cool stuff. I'm so blessed. So you know what? LinkedIn is a great way to connect. That's an awesome spot. Obviously Facebook, Instagram, My Golden Blood will be what we're going to publish. I'd like to we're negotiating to have us out later this year. The first book in the series. It's a series of 3. There are 3 lead characters, and each one of the books comes from the perspective of one of the 3 characters. And so it's a continuous story, but it's told by a different voice because everybody sees things differently. And here's the really cool thing. So in the hardcover book, there are embedded codes in there. You put your phone over the code, and you see a 15 to 30 second 3D mocap animation video of what you're reading.
Wow.
So we've in hardcover books, obviously the ebook, but the hardcover books, because we heard a statistic that just blew us away. See, allegedly, 60% of the people who graduate from high school never read a book again for pleasure. Never read a book again. Like, what?
I believe that.
So integrating all the different mediums, all the different, imagine you got ebook and you swipe left and you're reading the narrative and you swipe left again and suddenly one drop of blood goes down the screen and you're like, oh crap, this is some serious stuff. And then you go on and you see the next scene, and then the next scene, it can pop up. So the technology is available to us. We are in the process of creating the platform that makes that work. I'd love to work with Dubb and talk to you about how we could integrate us, what we're doing, because it's really about when you see it, it's real. And then obviously that goes from there to people getting a visual impression of what the game will look like, and then poof, rolling out the game.
That is super interesting.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's not been done. I learned a lot.
Will be. We have more conversations to have after this, so anytime I want to further our conversations. And I'm happy to roll it out. I'd love to do some, we can think about, let's talk about how we can, roll these little 3D mocaps out on Dubb. Wouldn't that be cool?
That's really interesting. I want to learn more about that, yeah.
Happy to. Thrilled to talk to you about it. So we've got a great mocap studio in Mount Horeb, Wisconsin, right outside of Madison. Mad Marker Studios. I put Noah's 6'3" and 170 pounds. So we strapped him in a Lycra suit with the little dots all over it, and we shot a bunch of footage.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, why don't you get in the suit? I'm like, no, I am built for comfort, not speed. You go. you go. And it's a really fascinating way to tell, multiple ways to tell a story and make the impact.
Well, please tag me in some of your future posts, and I'll do the same. And we have a bunch of stuff coming out from this convo. We're going to chop it up, and we're going to kind of distribute it out there.
Perfect.
So can't wait to connect more.
Excellent.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
The honor is mine. Thank you so much for sharing the time, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Likewise. Bye, Wendy.
Be well. Bye.